Welcome back to Cat Simplified channel. Today we are going to take a look at Technology Grade 8 topic outlines and study notes. My grade 8, what are you supposed to expect? Or combining from term 1 and then term 2, what you need to know before you go into the examination room. Now let's start with the forces. Basically, we have 4 different types of forces that act on loads. Now, when you have a certain load, there are certain forces that can act on the load. For instance, if you sit on the chair, you are applying certain forces on that chair. And if you play with someone and then maybe you shake each other, you're also applying what forces on that load. So basically, there are 4 different types of forces that can act on loads. The first one is compression force. Now, this is the type of force that pushes objects together. In other words, pressing a spring. Now, if you have a spring and then you press it, you push it, we call it compression force. So in other words, we call it the pushing force. So compression or pushing force. Now, this is a typical example, like the picture. You can see this arrow here is pushing this side, and this one is also pushing it here. So to make it a bit smaller. Now, the tension force, we call it the pulling force. So the tension force or pulling force. They pull objects apart. Example is rope in a tug of war. So when you're applying tug of war and then you are pulling each other, that is called a tension force. And then we have the torsion force, or sometimes we call it twisting. Twisting. Like the way we twist an object. So the force that twists objects, example, wringing a cloth. If you wash a cloth and then you are wringing it, we call it twisting force or torsion force. It goes in opposite direction. And then the next type of force is called the shear force. They are the type of force that causes parts to slide past one another. Example, when you use a scissor to cut something, they slide past one another. That type of a force is called shear force. So take note of that. So they go in opposite direction. Now, let's also move on to simple machines. Now, there are various machines that allow us to do or make work done easier. Now, if you want to do certain work, we have certain machines that will help us to perform certain jobs in an easier way. The first one is a lever. Now, when you talk about lever, we have 3 types of levers. We have the first class, second class, and the third class lever. We will discuss it also. Then the second one is pulleys. And then we have the gears, we have the cam, and then the crank. So if you are given a question to list examples or types of simple machines, these are the types of simple machines that as grade 8 learner, you must know. Now, let's try to define each other. A lever consists of a rigid bar pivoted on a fulcrum. So the fulcrum is the one that the load and then the effort move around. Now, the fulcrum, we call it the pivot point, and then the load, we call it the object being moved. So if you want to move a certain object, then you need to apply a force, and that should turn around something. That is what we call the lever. So the lever has 3 parts: fulcrum, load, and effort. The effort is the force that is being applied, and then the load is the object that's being moved or cut, and then the fulcrum is the pivot or the middle point. So if you take, for instance, if you're cutting something with a scissor, now when you take a scissor, for instance, where you are applying the force is the effort, and then where you are cutting, maybe you have a paper that you are cutting. Where you put the paper that you are cutting, that is the load, and then the fulcrum is the turning, that round thing whereby it turns when you press the other 2 points. So we call them a lever. Now, pulleys. Pulleys, they help us to lift loads easily using wheels and ropes also. Then we have the gears, which is a wheel with teeth used to change speed and direction of motion. We have cam, which converts rotary motion to up and down motions. And then we have crank also, that changes circular motions into a reciprocating motion. So a crank changes a circular motion to another motion called reciprocate. Now, here you need to know different types of simple machines. Then we go to gears. Gears, you must know how to calculate the gear ratio and other types of gears also, which are listed in the note. Now, how do we calculate the gear ratio? Gear ratio is calculated as the driver gear divided by the driven gear. Now, example, if you have a driver gear teeth of 40 and then the driven gear of 80, how do we calculate the gear ratio? It will be calculated as 40, which is the driver gear, divided by 80. So we are going to get 1 divided by 2. And then because we are applying it in a ratio way, we say 1:2. In math, you say 1:2 as a ratio. Now, that one will change the speed and direction of the motion or the rotation. Then we have another type of gear called idler. Idler is a type of gear that makes the driver and the driven gear turn in the same direction. So if you want the driver and then the driven gear to be turned into the same direction, you need another small gear called idler. Now let's go to structures. But before I move straight to structures, I would like to explain this concept also. The concept of comparing the 3 types of levers. Let's compare that before I move to. Now, the 3 types of levers. We have first class, second class, and then the third class lever. Now, if we talk about the first class lever, the fulcrum is in the middle. This is the how, if I ask you to draw it, order of the part or the drawing. So if you are asked to draw a first class lever, the effort is at the other end and then the load is at the other end. The one in the middle is the fulcrum. So here the effort is on the left, or it could be even on the right hand side. Then the one in the middle is the fulcrum. Example of the first class lever is seesaw. I know most of you have played this game before. You see seesaw, somebody will be sitting at the other end and another person will be sitting at one end also. And in the middle, we have the one that turns, that's the pivot, which we call the fulcrum. So one will be the load, one will be the effort. So seesaw is an example of first class lever. A scissor, the fulcrum is also in the middle. So that one becomes an example of first class. Crowbar also. Now, second class lever. Here the load is in the middle. The load is the one that is in the middle. Example is wheelbarrow and nut cracker. These ones are example of second class lever. So if you take wheelbarrow, the tie is at the end, which is the fulcrum. Then where we put the load is in the middle. And the way you are lifting it, where you are holding is the effort, also at the other end. So wheelbarrow is an example of the second class lever. Now we have the third class lever, whereby the effort is in the middle. Example is the tweezers, fishing rod, human arm. Your arm is an example of third class lever. The effort is the one that is in the middle. So take note of that. Now let's go to types of structures. Now, basically, we have two types of structures. When you build anything, we have two types of structures. When you were doing your mini pet, you were building a structure. Now, basically, two types are the natural structures, and also we have the man-made structures. Now, the natural structures are made by nature, not by human being. Example is trees, spider webs, skeletons, honeycomb, mountains, wool, cotton, or wood. Any type of structures that were not made by human beings but by nature. We call it natural structures. You must know them and examples also. Then the man-made structures are made by human being for specific purpose. Example of the man-made structures, we have three of them. We have the frame, we have the shell, and then we have the solid. So the three subtypes of man-made structures are these: the frame, the shell, and then the solid structure. Now, how do we differentiate between these three? One, the frame structure is made up of framework of parts. In other words, beams or rods. Now, usually strong and lightweight. So the frame structure is lightweight. Example is Jungle James, steel bridge frames, bike frames, electrical pylons, the one that you see electrical wires on them. They are the frame structures. And then shelter also is also a frame structure. Even the house, shelter is a frame. Then you must know how to put this example. Now we have shell. A shell have a solid outer surface that support the load, and they are mostly a hollow inside. So example is the egg shell, cans like the milk cans, and then other shell things, and then helmet, water tank, car body. They are all types of shell structures. But then the solid structure is made of solid material like little or no hollow space. They are heavy and strong. Example is the brick walls, dams, concrete pillars, stone statues, and then others. So all those are solid structures. So you must know them and then the examples and how to define them as well. Now let's go to properties of material. These structures, whenever you are doing your mini pet or you are building something, there are certain properties that you need to follow or you must consider. A good building material, they are strong, durable, water resistant, and safe. So basically, these are the properties: the strength, the flexibility, water resistant, and durability. They should be strong enough. They should be able to last longer, which is durable. They should be water resistant, and then they should be safe. So these are the properties of material. Now, these materials can be either biodegradable or non-biodegradable. What do you mean by these two? Biodegradable materials like cardboard, they decompose naturally. What do you mean by decompose? They mix up with soil when you throw them away. Like cardboard, papers, when you throw papers away, they will easily form part of the soil when it rains. So we call them biodegradable. Non-biodegradable are those that do not decompose with soil, and then they cause a lot of harm to the environment. Example is plastics. They are non-degradable material. Now, the impact of waste. We will start with e-waste, which we call it the electronic waste. Is the old electronic gadgets. Let's say your tablet, and then you throw the tablet away if you are not using it, or your mobile phone or something that's electronic that you throw them away. Now, You must always use eco-friendly material that helps to reduce pollution. Now, you must know the 3 R's. What do we mean by the 3 R's? The 3 R's are reduce, reuse, and recycle. When we say reduce, you must use less bio or non degradable material. Like example, use less plastics. That's what we mean by the reducing. And then reuse, use items again. Let's say the plastic, if you buy plastic, anytime you go to the shop, use the same plastic again so that it does not cause harm to the environment. Then recycle, meaning that you process used material into a new one. That is, if that material is no longer in need, you must turn it again to use it to produce another material. We call it recycle. So the 3 R's are used to make sure that we protect the environment from pollution. Already we talk about the biodegradable. We said biodegradable, they break down naturally like cardboard. Non-biodegradable, they do not break down easily like plastic and glass and others. And then also, you must know sustainability and packaging. That's the pollution and other that we talk about, reuse, recycle, and others. And then also the 3 types of levers, you must know how to draw them. So basically, these are the things that you must know as grade 8 learners before you go into the examination room. I will share this document with you as well. Thank you for your precious time.